Walter Gaines had lived 72 years without ever needing to prove himself. A retired history teacher, a devoted father, a quiet neighbor. He never raised his voice, never asked for recognition. But on a quiet morning, when he saw something suspicious across the street, all that calm was shattered. He did the right thing, called the police. But instead of help, he got suspicion. Instead of respect, he got mockery. And when he mentioned his son worked for the Secret Service, they laughed in his face. What followed was a slow burn of humiliation, disbelief, and a truth so powerful it flipped the entire street upside down. Before we get rolling, tell me something. Are you more of a morning watcher or a night owl who binges late? Type it in the comments. You'll want to stay for this one. It's quietly powerful. And if you're into true-to-life dramas like this, subscribe now so you don't miss the next. Walter Gaines stood at his kitchen window, sipping his morning coffee. At 72, his morning routine rarely changed. 6 o'clock, wake up. Stretch exercises for his back. Coffee while watching the birds at his feeder. 40 years teaching history had made Walter appreciate quiet mornings. Since losing his wife Helen 3 years ago, these peaceful moments meant even more. Walter smiled as he thought about his son Marcus coming to visit next week. They'd celebrate Walter's birthday together. Though Marcus couldn't visit often, Walter understood why. His son's job protecting the President of the United States kept him extremely busy. Walter never bragged about Marcus to neighbors. No need to boast. He'd raised his boy right, and that was enough. A movement across the street caught Walter's eye. A man in a dark hoodie was peering into the Hendersons' side window. Walter frowned. The Hendersons were away visiting their daughter. That's not right, Walter muttered, reaching for his phone. He dialed the police, reporting what he saw clearly and calmly. The dispatcher promised officers would arrive soon. Walter kept watching from behind his curtain. The man in the hoodie now appeared to be testing the back door. 20 minutes later, a police cruiser finally pulled up. Walter stepped onto his porch, raising his hand to get the officer's attention. 2 white officers approached slowly. The older one, his name tag reading Wilson, barely made eye contact. Morning, officers. I'm Walter Gaines. I called about the suspicious person at the Hendersons' house. Officer Wilson glanced at the house across the street. And where is this person now? He went around back about 15 minutes ago. Haven't seen him come out. The younger officer, Jennings, smirked slightly. And you're sure you saw someone? Not just, the wind moving something. Walter stood straighter. Young man, I may be 72, but my eyesight is just fine. Wilson sighed. We'll take a quick look. You wait here. As the officers walked toward the Hendersons' house, Walter noticed how they moved casually, without urgency. They hadn't asked for any details about what the person looked like or what exactly he was doing. Walter felt a familiar knot in his stomach. He'd seen this before, not being taken seriously because of his age and his skin color. Through his years teaching in predominantly white schools, Walter had learned to maintain his dignity when disrespected. But it never stopped hurting. Little did Walter know, this routine call would soon become anything but routine. The officers returned 5 minutes later, barely having circled the Hendersons' house. All clear, Officer Wilson announced with a dismissive wave. Nobody there. Walter frowned. Did you check the back door? He was trying to force it open. Officer Jennings rolled his eyes. Sir, we checked. Maybe you saw the gardener. The Hendersons don't have a gardener, Walter replied firmly. And this wasn't someone working. He was sneaking around, looking in windows. Wilson stepped closer to Walter. Look, we get these calls all the time. People your age sometimes imagine things. The comment stung like a slap. Walter had faced this kind of dismissal his entire life, but he wouldn't back down when he knew he was right. I know what I saw. That man was not supposed to be there. Jennings snickered. And I suppose you know everyone who's supposed to be in this neighborhood? I've lived here 30 years, Walter said, his voice steady despite his rising anger. So yes, I generally do. Wilson sighed loudly. Sir, we've checked it out. There's no one there, no signs of forced entry. Because you barely looked. Walter couldn't help raising his voice now. If a white neighbor had called, "Whoa, let's not make this about race," Wilson cut in sharply. His hand moved to rest on his belt, near his taser. Walter took a deep breath. Escalating wouldn't help. "My son will be here soon. He works for the Secret Service. Perhaps you could wait and speak with him." Both officers exchanged glances. Then Jennings burst out laughing. "The Secret Service? Sure, and my uncle works for the CIA." Wilson chuckled too. "Sir, making false claims about federal connections isn't going to help your case." Walter felt heat rising in his face. "It's not a false claim. My son is Marcus Gaines, Deputy Director of Presidential Protection." This only made the officers laugh harder. Wilson actually slapped his knee. "Deputy Director? That's a good one." Wilson's tone dripped with mockery. "I'm sure your son has a very nice job, sir." Neighbors were beginning to peek through windows, watching the scene unfold. Mrs. Abernathy across the street stood on her porch, staring openly. Walter stood his ground, despite the humiliation burning through him. Decades of experience had taught him that showing anger would only make things worse. "My son will be here any minute," Walter said quietly. "Then we'll see who's laughing." The officer's smiles faded, replaced by irritation. "Sir, we need you to go back inside now," Wilson said, his voice hardening. Walter didn't move. He had done nothing wrong, and he would not be dismissed on his own property. "Sir, I want to ask again. Go back inside your house." Officer Wilson stepped closer, invading Walter's personal space. Walter stood firm. "I've done nothing wrong. I reported a crime in progress, and we responded. Now you're interfering with police business." Jennings moved to Wilson's side, both officers now looming over Walter. "By standing on my own porch?" Walter asked. Wilson grabbed Walter's arm. "That's it. You're being uncooperative." The sudden contact shocked Walter. In all his 72 years, he'd never been handled by police. He tried to pull away instinctively. "Take your hands off me. Stop resisting," Jennings shouted, grabbing Walter's other arm. "I'm not resisting," Walter protested as both officers gripped him tightly. Mrs. Abernathy gasped from across the street. Other neighbors were coming outside now, watching the scene unfold. "This is ridiculous," Walter said, trying to stay calm despite his racing heart. "I called you for help." Wilson smirked. "And now you're interfering with officers. Funny how that works." "My son." "All right. Your Secret Service son." Jennings laughed loudly. "Tell us more about your important son. Does he know the president personally?" Walter felt a deep, burning shame. Not for himself, but for these officers making a mockery of their badges. "As a matter of fact, he does," Walter said quietly. This sent both officers into another fit of laughter. "Oh man, that's rich," Wilson wheezed. "Hey Mike, we should call this into Washington. Maybe the president wants to know his buddy's dad is causing trouble." While they laughed, Walter spotted a black sedan turning onto his street. His heart leaped. That was Marcus's government car. "My son is arriving now," Walter said, nodding toward the approaching vehicle. Wilson didn't even bother looking. "Sure he is. And I bet he's got the presidential helicopter following him too." The black sedan slowed, parking several houses down. A tall figure in a dark suit stepped out. "Officers, that's my son," Walter said urgently. "If you just look." "Enough," Wilson snapped, tightening his grip. "One more word about your imaginary Secret Service son, and you're going to jail for filing a false report." "But he's right there," Walter insisted, trying to gesture with his restrained arms. Jennings leaned in close, his voice low and threatening. "You know what I think? I think old men like you watch too many spy movies. There's no son in the Secret Service. There probably wasn't any suspicious person either." Walter felt a sharp pain in his chest. The stress, the tight grip on his arms, the humiliation. It was becoming too much. "I need to sit down," Walter gasped. "Now he's trying to play the health card," Wilson said to Jennings, but his voice sounded distant to Walter. The pain spread across Walter's chest. He'd had heart trouble before. He recognized the warning signs. As spots danced in Walter's vision, he saw the tall figure in the dark suit walking briskly toward them, sunglasses hiding his eyes but purpose evident in every step. The pain in Walter's chest tightened like a vice. He struggled to breathe normally, not wanting to show weakness in front of these officers. "I said I need to sit down," Walter repeated, his voice strained. Officer Wilson rolled his eyes. "Sure, after we finish here." Walter tried to focus on the approaching figure of his son. Marcus was still too far away to see what was happening clearly, but he was walking faster now. "My medication," inside, Walter managed, the pain making him lightheaded. "Oh, now you need medication?" Jennings scoffed. "Next you'll tell us you need your presidential phone to call your buddy at the White House." The officers laughed again, still gripping Walter's arms tightly between them. Their laughter felt like daggers in Walter's ears. Mrs. Abernathy finally found her courage. She stepped off her porch and called out, "Officers, please. Mr. Gaines is a good man. Why are you treating him this way?" Wilson barely glanced at her. "Ma'am, please stay back. This is police business." "Police business?" she questioned. "He's an elderly man who reported a crime." Walter appreciated her support, but embarrassment burned through him. 72 years of living with dignity, and now he was being mocked and manhandled in front of his neighbors. The pain in his chest pulsed again, stronger this time. Walter tried to take deep breaths. He couldn't afford to have a heart episode now. Not like this. "Officers," Walter said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "My son is walking up the street right now, in a black suit. Please, just look." Wilson sighed dramatically. "Sir, we're not playing this game anymore." But Jennings glanced up, curiosity finally getting the better of him. His smirk faltered slightly as he noticed the tall black man in the immaculate suit walking purposefully toward them. Brendan, Jennings nudged his partner. "There is someone coming." "So what?" "It's probably just another neighbor," Wilson dismissed without looking. The pain made Walter gasp. "Please, my heart medication." Wilson finally seemed to notice Walter's distress. His grip loosened slightly. "Sir, are you having a medical issue?" Before Walter could answer, a deep, authoritative voice cut through the tension. "Excuse me, officers. What's happening here?" The voice was calm but carried unmistakable command. Both officers turned. Marcus Gaines stood 6 feet away, his posture perfectly straight, his expression unreadable behind sleek sunglasses. The small earpiece in his right ear gleamed in the morning sun. Everything about him radiated professional authority. Wilson's face showed confusion, but no recognition. "Sir, please step back. We're handling a situation." Marcus removed his sunglasses slowly, revealing eyes that missed nothing. "The situation I see is 2 officers restraining my 72-year-old father, who appears to be in medical distress." Jennings blinked rapidly, looking between Walter and Marcus. The family resemblance was clear now. "Your father?" Wilson asked, his mocking tone fading. Walter looked at his son with pride despite his pain. "Marcus," he gasped. "My heart." In an instant, Marcus's professional demeanor shifted. Concern flashed across his face as he stepped forward. "Release him. Now." The command in Marcus's voice was impossible to ignore. Both officers instinctively loosened their grip on Walter's arms. Marcus moved forward with controlled urgency, supporting his father as Walter's knees weakened. "Dad, is it your heart?" Marcus asked, his training evident in his calm efficiency. Walter nodded, pressing his hand to his chest. "Feels like last time." Without looking up from his father, Marcus addressed the officers. "One of you get his medication. It's likely on his bedside table or in the bathroom cabinet." Neither officer moved immediately. They seemed frozen, confused by the sudden shift in power dynamics. Marcus looked up, his gaze sharp. "Now." Jennings jumped into action, hurrying toward Walter's front door. Which one is it?" "Small white bottle." "Nitroglycerin," Walter managed. As Jennings disappeared inside, Marcus helped Walter to sit on the porch steps. His movements were gentle but confident. Wilson hovered nearby, uncertainty replacing his earlier arrogance. "Sir, we were responding to a suspicious person call, and And you decided my father was the suspicious person instead? Marcus cut him off, his voice cold. No, that's not. He became uncooperative and I watched your interaction from down the street. Officer Wilson, Marcus said, reading the name tag. What I saw was two officers physically restraining an elderly man who was showing signs of distress. Jennings hurried back with Walter's medication. Marcus took the bottle, quickly helping his father place a pill under his tongue. As Walter's breathing slowly steadied, Marcus stood to his full height. He reached inside his suit jacket and produced an identification wallet. He flipped it open, revealing a badge and credentials. Marcus Gaines, Deputy Director, United States Secret Service, Presidential Protective Division. Wilson's face drained of color. Jennings's mouth actually hung open. We didn't. Wilson stammered. You didn't believe him, Marcus finished. Despite having no reason to doubt him, Walter's pain began to ease as the medication took effect. He watched his son handling the situation with the same quiet authority he'd always admired. Marcus spoke into his wrist microphone. Eagle 2, this is Guardian. Requesting medical response to my location for civilian medical assistance. Non-emergency. A voice crackled back. Copy Guardian. Medical en route. ETA 7 minutes. The neighbors watching from their yards and porches whispered among themselves. Mrs. Abernathy approached cautiously. Walter, are you all right? She asked, concern etched on her face. Walter nodded, finding his voice again. I'll be fine, Elaine. Thank you. Marcus turned his attention back to the officers. While we wait for medical, perhaps you could explain why you dismissed my father's report without proper investigation. Wilson's professional demeanor had completely crumbled. Sir, I apologize if we did check the property. Barely, Walter interjected, strength returning to his voice. They walked around a house once, didn't even check the back door properly. Marcus's expression remained neutral, but his eyes hardened. And then instead of continuing your investigation, you decided to mock my father and physically restrain him on his own property? Neither officer had an answer. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer. The medics arrived within minutes, quickly checking Walter's vitals. His color improved as they confirmed his heart rhythm was stabilizing. Blood pressures elevated but coming down, the paramedic reported. Would you like to go to the hospital for further evaluation, Mr. Gaines? Walter shook his head. No, the nitroglycerin did its job. It was just stress-induced. As the medics worked, Marcus stepped aside with the two officers. His voice was low, but carried the weight of authority. Your badge numbers and precinct information, please. Wilson seemed to find his voice again. Sir, there seems to be a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Marcus cut in. I witnessed you physically restraining my elderly father while he was in medical distress. I heard you mocking him about his son's profession, which happens to be mine. Jennings stared at his shoes. Wilson shifted uncomfortably. Badge numbers. Now, Marcus didn't raise his voice, but the command was unmistakable. After the officers complied, Marcus continued, I'm not here in an official capacity. I took personal leave to surprise my father for his birthday, but I will be filing a formal complaint regarding your conduct today. Wilson paled further. Sir, please understand we get calls like this all the time. People claiming connections. Did you actually investigate the suspicious person my father reported? Marcus interrupted. We checked the property, Wilson insisted. A commotion down the street drew everyone's attention. 2 police cars pulled up in front of the Hendersons' house. Officers were leading a handcuffed man toward one of the cruisers. Walter's neighbor from 2 doors down hurried over. Walter. They caught him. I called it in after I saw that guy breaking into the Hendersons' back door. Just like you said. Marcus turned to Wilson and Jennings, his expression ice cold. Seems my father was telling the truth about everything. The medics finished their assessment, advising Walter to rest and follow up with his doctor. As they packed up their equipment, Marcus sat beside his father on the porch steps. I'm sorry, Dad, he said quietly. I should have been here sooner. Walter patted his son's hand. You're here now. That's what matters. Officer Wilson approached cautiously. Mr. Gaines, sir. I want to apologize. Save it, Marcus interrupted. Your apology means nothing if you go right back to treating the next elderly black man the same way. Walter raised his hand gently. No, son. Let him speak. Wilson looked genuinely ashamed now. Sir, there's no excuse for how he treated you. You were right about the break-in, right about your son. I let assumptions cloud my judgment. Walter studied the officer's face. This isn't about being right, Officer Wilson. It's about respect. I've lived 72 years in this country, taught American history to thousands of students, served on neighborhood watch, and yet you looked at me and saw, what? A confused old man? Or something worse? Wilson had no answer. My father deserves better, Marcus said, standing up. From the police sworn to protect him. From neighbors who watched and did nothing. From a system that still judges people by their skin color. The second officer, Jennings, finally spoke up. Sir, how can we make this right? Walter considered the question. It was the first sincere thing either officer had said all day. Learn from it, Walter said simply. That's all any teacher really wants. By afternoon, Walter's living room had become command central. Marcus made several calls while Walter rested in his recliner. The neighborhood had transformed too. Neighbors who had merely watched the morning's events unfold now came by with casseroles, flowers, and apologies. Mrs. Abernathy sat across from Walter, wringing her hands. I should have spoken up sooner, Walter. I saw how those officers were treating you. Walter offered a gentle smile. You did speak up, Elaine. More than anyone else. Not soon enough, she insisted. Not loudly enough. Marcus ended his call and joined them. His suit jacket was off now, but he still carried himself with the vigilant posture of someone always ready to respond. Dad, the police captain would like to come by personally to address what happened, Marcus explained. I told him tomorrow would be better, after you've rested. Walter nodded. What about the break-in at the Hendersons? They caught the guy red-handed with stolen items in his car, Marcus confirmed. Thanks to your neighbor's second call that should have been taken seriously the first time. A knock at the door revealed more neighbors bearing gifts and concerns. Word had spread quickly about who Walter's son was and about how the police had treated their elderly neighbor. After they left, Walter sighed heavily. Suddenly, everyone wants to be my friend. Marcus sat beside his father. That bothers you. It wasn't a question. After 45 years, Marcus knew his father well. It shouldn't take finding out my son is in the Secret Service for people to treat me with respect, Walter said quietly. Marcus nodded. No, it shouldn't. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before Walter spoke again. Your mother would have given those officers an earful, he said with a small smile. Marcus laughed. Mom never did suffer fools gladly. Helen had a way of making people see themselves clearly, Walter agreed, without even raising her voice. Unlike me, Marcus admitted. I wanted to do a lot more than raise my voice when I saw them handling you that way. Walter studied his son. But you didn't. You stayed professional. I learned control from you, Dad, Marcus said. I've watched you handle disrespect with dignity my whole life. Another knock interrupted them. Marcus answered to find Officer Wilson standing alone, not in uniform. I'm off duty, Wilson explained quickly. May I speak with Mr. Gaines? Marcus looked to his father, who nodded. Wilson entered hesitantly, declining to sit when offered. Mr. Gaines, I came to tell you personally that I've been placed on administrative leave pending review. I didn't ask for that, Walter said. No, sir, but it was the right call, Wilson admitted. What I did, how I treated you, it wasn't just unprofessional. It was wrong. Walter watched the officer closely, looking for sincerity. Officer Jennings, Walter asked. Same, Wilson confirmed. Though he's newer, still learning. I set a terrible example today. Marcus stood silently, watching the interaction without interfering. Why did you come here, Officer Wilson? Walter asked finally. Wilson looked directly at Walter for the first time. Because I need you to know this isn't who I want to be. The following morning, Walter woke to find Marcus already in the kitchen making breakfast. The familiar smell of pancakes filled the air. "Your mother's recipe," Marcus explained as Walter entered. "I can't get them quite like hers, but I try." Walter smiled. "You sound like you're still 10 years old, trying to surprise us on our anniversary." They ate together, falling into comfortable reminiscing about Helen. These moments were rare treasures for both men, quiet time to simply be father and son. Their peace was interrupted by a knock at exactly 10 o'clock. The police captain had arrived as scheduled, along with a department lieutenant. In Walter's living room, Captain Rivera listened intently as Walter recounted the previous day's events. He didn't interrupt or make excuses. "Mr. Gaines, on behalf of the department, I offer my deepest apologies," the captain said when Walter finished. What happened was inexcusable. Marcus sat beside his father, professional but watchful. "Officers Wilson and Jennings have been placed on administrative leave," Captain Rivera continued. "But I'm more concerned with addressing the systemic issues this incident reveals." Walter leaned forward slightly. "What do you mean by that, Captain?" "I mean that while those two officers will face disciplinary action, the real problem is bigger than them. It's about unconscious bias in our ranks, about how we train officers to respond to different community members." For the first time since the incident began, Walter felt a glimmer of hope. This wasn't the typical administrative brush-off he'd expected. "What are you proposing to do about it?" Marcus asked. The lieutenant spoke up. "We'd like Mr. Gaines to consider speaking to our officers, sharing his experience as part of our community policing initiative." Walter raised his eyebrows in surprise. "You want me to address your officers?" "Only if you're willing," the captain assured him. "Your perspective as both a victim of police disrespect and as someone who spent his life educating young people would be invaluable." Walter considered the request. Teaching had been his life's calling. Perhaps this was an extension of that work, a chance to make a real difference. "I'll think about it," Walter promised. After the police officials left, Walter and Marcus walked slowly around the neighborhood. Neighbors waved with new respect. The word had spread quickly. "Does it bother you?" Walter asked his son suddenly. "Living with this constant judgment based on your skin?" Marcus thought before answering. "In my position, I have credentials that usually override people's initial reactions. But take away the badge, the suit, the earpiece, and yes, it never stops bothering me." Walter nodded. "I've spent 72 years trying to decide whether it's better to call it out or rise above it." "What's your conclusion?" Marcus asked. Walter gestured to the neighborhood around them. "That sometimes, son, you have to do both." 1 month later, Walter stood before 30 police officers in a precinct training room. His hands rested calmly on the podium as he surveyed the faces before him, some attentive, others skeptical, a few openly uncomfortable. "I'm not here to shame anyone," Walter began. "I taught history for 40 years. I know that shame is a poor teacher. Understanding is what changes people." In the back row sat officers Wilson and Jennings. Both returned to limited duty after sensitivity training. Wilson met Walter's eyes with a respectful nod. "What happened to me could have ended much worse," Walter continued. "I could have had a major heart attack. I could have reacted in anger and escalated the situation. My son could have arrived after I'd been taken away or injured." Walter paused, letting the possibilities sink in. But the real tragedy would have been if nothing changed afterward. For the next hour, Walter shared not just the story of that day, but a lifetime of similar moments, smaller indignities, subtle dismissals, the constant calculations every black person makes to navigate white spaces safely. When he finished, the room was silent. Then Captain Rivera stepped forward. "Questions for Mr. Gaines?" A young officer raised her hand. "Sir, how do we do better?" "I mean specifically, what should Wilson and Jennings have done differently from the start?" Walter appreciated the direct question. "Listen," he said simply. "They should have listened. To my report about the suspicious person. To my explanation about my health concerns. They assumed they knew better than me about what was happening on my own property, in my own neighborhood, even in my own body." After the session, Officer Wilson approached Walter privately. "That was powerful, Mr. Gaines," he said. I keep thinking about what you said about listening. Walter nodded. Teaching taught me that listening is the most respectful thing you can do for another person. I've been assigned to community outreach, Wilson shared. Walking beats, getting to know the neighborhoods. It's changing how I see things. Good, Walter said. Keep learning. Back at home that evening, Walter opened his laptop to a video call with Marcus. How did it go, Dad? Marcus asked, the White House visible in the background behind him. Better than expected, Walter replied. I think some of them actually heard me. Marcus smiled. The deputy director asked about you today. Said that story about what happened made it all the way to the president. Walter chuckled. Tell him I'm just a retired teacher doing what teachers do, trying to make the world a little better, one lesson at a time. After the call ended, Walter stepped onto his porch. Mrs. Abernathy waved from across the street, a genuine friendship forming between them now. The neighborhood felt different. Not perfect, not transformed, but different. Walter sat in his porch chair, watching the evening settle over the street. He didn't know if the officers who had laughed at him would truly change. He didn't know if his neighbors would remember this lesson when the next incident occurred. But he had done what he could. He had stood his ground with dignity. He had turned humiliation into education. And in doing so, he had honored everything Helen had loved about him, everything he had tried to teach Marcus. Sometimes Walter realized respect isn't given freely. Sometimes it must be claimed, insisted upon, taught to those who withhold it. That brings the story to a close. There's a certain kind of strength that doesn't shout, it just stands its ground. Walter never raised his voice, but his dignity spoke louder than any badge or uniform. In a world too quick to judge and too slow to listen, he held on to truth, even when it hurt. And in the end, the truth didn't need to shout either. It just walked up in a black suit and changed everything. Respect isn't something that should depend on titles or appearances. It's something we all owe each other. Until we learn, someone like Walter will always have to teach it. Do you think the officers truly learned their lesson in the end? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your take. And hey, if you're still here, you clearly love good storytelling. You won't find this kind of drama anywhere else, so hit that subscribe and keep the stories coming. Click over and watch the next one too.